So please do turn again to Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 to 7. It's on page 693. And if you're at primary school and you've got one of these sheets, you can turn them into a Christmas card, believe it or not. So the sheet that you've got, you can fold it and make it into that kind of thing. You are allowed to colour the first bit in at this time. That would make more sense, that Christmas is coming. And there's a good picture for parents to have a chat with your kids about, or relatives to have a chat. There's so many cats running in front of me the last few days to my head. Didn't run over any of them, thankfully. But anyway, a chat. You could have a chat about that picture. Why is there a cradle, a manger, and a cross, and a Christmas tree? See if you can figure that one out. Okay, so Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 to 7. And our big focus today will be on three things that the child that is born is called. And the child that is born will be Jesus. Sorry, the three phrases. So you've got Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father. And the Prince of Peace thing I'm going to do on Christmas Day, if you're here for that. Okay, so we're doing three of these. Let's look at the passage again. Just read through it again. It's helpful to see. You might have the song going around your head a bit as well, or not. So, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. I'll stop there. And I think maybe we can have this on the screen. Let's just see. We got a new gizmo to play with today, see if it actually works. So, and I'm back in I feel like I'm in a government thing where I say, first slide, please. Okay, so we've got that. That's the passage we just read. Now, the background to these words, let's see. Yeah, how good's your eyesight? You don't need to see much on this. This is just to show an example of, give you a picture of Isaiah when he's writing these words. This is where he's living. So he's living in the green bit. If you can see, just here. So he's living in Judah. And God's people are currently, at this time, 700 years before Jesus was born, before the first Christmas, God's people are divided into two areas. You've got the greens and the whatever that colour is. What would you say? Like a pinky, purpley. So you've got 10 tribes up there, the northern kingdom, and you've got 2 tribes down here, the southern kingdom. And Isaiah is writing in this bit here, in the greenish sort of area. Right. And there's a problem in Isaiah chapter 9 as he's writing, and it's really this, darkness. So if you look at verse 2, keep those Bibles open, verse 2, and I'm just reading selectively from verse 2 to start with. It talks about darkness, that the people are walking in darkness, and they're those living in the land of the shadow of death. Because this was happening. God's people had been unfaithful, and they were being led away almost piece by piece in exile to different lands. They were being uprooted as prisoners, as slaves. And we know this as exile. It's almost like you've got to exit your home and be taken away to a place far away from home. And this process of being exiled lasted for about 200 years. And Isaiah is writing in these times where God's people were being defeated, humiliated, and then taken away into exile far from home. And here's a map. Again, not that easy to see, but let me show you the first people who got taken away were the northern kingdom, and they're this purpley stuff. So Israel, the northern kingdom, they were taken away, 10 tribes to Assyria, never really to return properly. But there was a remainder left. Sometimes it's known as a remnant from Judah, And they were going to be led here on this green line to Babylon as exiles taken away. Just gives you a rough idea of the darkness that was coming to these people and was going to come to those in Judah to be taken to Babylon. It's pretty dark. And in that situation, Isaiah is writing, where it's like all seems to be darkness, but he writes about hope on the horizon. Look at verse 2 again, which actually says in full, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. You think like, well, how? It's so terrible. Everyone's being led away from the promised land where God's people are supposed to be. They're being taken away. But it says, on those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. And we wonder, what is the ultimate light? How could Isaiah possibly have hope? And we get on to verse 6. It's a bit of an unexpected one, perhaps. That it says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given. And they might have been hoping for a little bit more. You know, it's like, we're all getting taken into exile, and you're telling us there's a child? Have you got anything else? But this is the great promise. For us a child is born. And this is the best promise. Although it may not seem like it originally, back then. And sometimes you get this in films in some way, where there's a child that is really special and is going to grow up into something special that's going to change things dramatically. But this is Jesus becomes the ultimate, most superior example of a child who could be born, who is amazingly special and will do something out of this world, destined for epic greatness. This is Jesus. And we see in the passage in verse 6, he's the wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. We are going to unpack these this morning, but only 3 of them. Wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father. So if you've got one of those sheets that you may have folded and turned into a Christmas card, this would be a good moment to open that out, where it says, Jesus is the wonderful Counselor, and feel free to colour that in as you listen. So how is Jesus a wonderful Counselor? Well, I don't know. What would you expect from a counsellor? You go and see a counsellor, and you think, right, I'm going to see a good counsellor, and I'm going to expect that they would listen, that they would be understanding, they'd give me some help, some good advice, a little bit of wisdom. Jesus is better than any of those people. He is the wonderful Counselor. No comparison, in a league of his own. To put it this way, this might be a helpful image. When Jesus walked on this planet, the wisdom of God walked on this planet in human form as a man. Now, I don't know what your imagination is like. Mine's pretty strange. If you know me, you'll know that's true. Pretty strange imagination, right? So I pictured this as, imagine the 6 letters. This might be a helpful image to some of you. So you've got W-I-S-D-O-M. Imagine those 6 letters just walking around. Clearly wisdom. You know, there we go. It's an image of what Jesus was like. But the wisdom of God walking around everywhere he went. When Jesus walked this earth, the wisdom of God walked this earth. And so, Jesus isn't like, when Jesus was walking around, he wasn't just saying, here's a nice opinion, here's a little bit of truth. Jesus came and he said it like this: I am the way and the truth and the life. and no one comes to the Father except through me. Now that is the kind of counselor that we all actually need. He's the one to listen to. In this life, we will hear so many opinions. People will give us loads and loads of opinions. Turn the telly on. It's like opinion after opinion after opinion. Jesus cuts through all of this and says, no, actually, I am the way, the truth, the life. So, how's your life going today? How's as you look to your future, you're looking at maybe all the stuff in the news, how's that working out for you right now? What am I supposed to do with my life? And Jesus says, I am the way. We follow him. Can any of us really know what's true? Jesus says, I am the truth. Can there be any hope for the future? And Jesus says, I'm the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. The search is over in Jesus. As we follow Jesus, as we turn to him, it is as if the gates of heaven swing open and we are welcomed in. And our wonderful counselor leads us through. Now, some people in this room have become followers of Jesus. And I don't know what happened to you. When you became a follower of Jesus, how did you respond initially? Now, I would be totally fine if someone became a Christian and for a whole minute they just went, I'm not going to do it for a whole minute, they just went, life, 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 life. I'd be happy with that because Jesus does bring life. He promises it. He's the way, the truth, and the life. The wonderful counselor with wonderful wisdom, wonderful ways. Now, a good counselor can make you feel quite good about yourself for a bit. Good counselor. Jesus is the wonderful counselor. And we listen to him. And we are led to life. Life. When Jesus walked the earth, the wisdom of God walked this earth because Jesus is the wonderful counselor. Right, the next one. The next up is mighty God. Might seem a bit of a strange one to call a child. It gets stranger when we get to everlasting Father. But we'll go with mighty God. So if you're colouring in, we're on to mighty God. It's a good one. And this is what we see in verse 6. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given. A child is born. And then you go further down, and he will be called mighty God. A child will be called mighty God. Now, if Isaiah had said that to me 700 years before Jesus was born, and we don't know anything about Jesus at that point, I'm thinking, how on earth is that going to get fulfilled? Because, Mr. Isaiah, chatting to Isaiah, I'll call him Mr. Isaiah because it's kind of a big deal. So Mr. Isaiah, how can this be? This is a very curious prophecy. How can a baby boy be called mighty God? That is a curious prophecy, and actually, for a lot, it would just seem impossible. Because if you think about it, God is God, children are children, and you think, well, how is a child going to be born and be mighty God? It'd be called mighty God with capital letters and everything. But Isaiah is very clear. This child will be called the mighty God. And then we read in the New Testament the fulfillment of this. This is Matthew 1, verse 23. If you like remembering verses, it's just 1, 2, 3. So there you go. Matthew 1:23 tells us, this is kicking everything off. The virgin will be with child, that's Mary, right? And will give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. Fantastically, remarkably, almost impossible to our eyes, this baby is God in the flesh. And that's Christmas. Anyway, Christmas is coming, right? This is the central point about Christmas, that God would become a person, and they call him Jesus. That baby in a manger would become the man on a cross. Jesus, God with us. Jesus, God the Son. But notice, it's not just God. It says, mighty God. This baby will be mighty God. The mighty, all-powerful, eternal Son of God allowed himself to be, this is from a song, little, weak, and helpless, or something like that. Little, weak, and helpless. Born as a baby in a manger, vulnerable. Mighty God taking on a vulnerable human body that could feel like we feel. So if you had a crown of thorns put on your head, thorns, and you had nails going into your hands, we'd feel pretty awful, right? We'd feel it all. But of course, we didn't have to take the crown of thorns, and we didn't have to take the nails, because Jesus was willing to take those nails instead of us with a body like ours. I mean, look at your hand, a hand like yours. You got hands, you can find your hand. So in hands like these, nails went in, and it was Jesus, the Son of God. That vulnerability so that he could die in our place for all the wrong things we've done. Now, do you see how he's mighty there? In all of that, Jesus is mighty, the only one who could save us. He was winning the mightiest victory ever. I mean, Arsenal fans might feel particularly good about their win yesterday. Yeah. The mightiest victory was the one over sin and Satan and death, and Jesus won that. About 2,000 years ago, a child is born, and it's Jesus, mighty God. And Jesus spoke about what he came to do. If you're thinking I'm putting words into Jesus' mouth, he says it like this: the Son of Man. Jesus talked about himself as the Son of Man a lot. So he's talking about himself. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many, as payment for many. The mighty God, God the Son, became incredibly a baby, Jesus Christ, and gave his life as a ransom for many. Now, before I say any more, we're going to sing a song that is very much related to this, and you will know, a lot of you will know, it's called Servant King, From Heaven You Came, Helpless Babe. So as we start playing, please do stand, and we'll sing this one together. Okay, if you're at primary school and you have this sheet, you may have had a go at colouring in some of these bits. On the back, we're now onto Jesus, the everlasting Father. And there's some letters here to try and put into words and that make sense of what I'm about to say. So far we've had wonderful Counselor and mighty God. And thirdly, perhaps the strangest of the lot, to my ears. It may be not to you, but to me, I'm like, what does that mean? It's the everlasting Father. Now, this gets trotted off every Christmas, and it will be trotted off tonight in one of the readings. Wonderful Counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And I know it's about Jesus in the end. So, I'm thinking, how can Jesus be called the Father? I am going to try and unpack this. I am making an attempt. I'm sure there are many great things to say about this that I won't be saying, but here we go. How can Jesus be called the Father? Because Jesus is not the Father. Well, he's not God the Father. Jesus is God the Son. Like my Father is not my Son, and I am not my Father's Father, if you get me. So how is Jesus the everlasting Father? Have you ever thought that? Like you're like singing it or reading it and you're going, yep, okay, Jesus is wonderful counselor, tick, fine, yeah, mighty God, yep, tick. Prince of Peace, yeah, okay, that's fine, not too much to think about there. Everlasting Father. Okay, well, let me rattle off some theology first, some stuff about God first, just to clear something up really fast so I don't just spout heresy. So, just some quick stuff about God. What is God like? God is 3 in 1. He is Trinity. He's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God in 3 persons. And so Jesus, the Son, in that, he's definitely not the Father. In the Trinity, Jesus is not. He never is, in the Trinity, the Father. He is the Son and always the Son. So, how can the child in Isaiah 9, who is Jesus, the Son, ultimately Jesus, how can the Son of God get called Father? Have you ever thought that? I mean, like for you thinkers out there, surely you've kind of occasionally gone, huh? What does that mean? So we're going to look at what does that mean? If I was trying to say it as simply as I can, it would be those 2 things. Now, I suspect it's also more than that, but it is at least these 2 things. So the first thing, Jesus is Father in that he cares and in that he is the King. Let me explain. So first of all, he cares. You could say he is fatherly. When someone is a caring father type figure, fatherly. Now, Jesus will always do the kind of things that a loving father would be expected to do. Jesus is always, in a sense, fatherly towards us. Even though, let's remember, he is never Father God. He is always the Son of God, but he certainly cares like a perfect Father. And the second thing is he's King. And this is linked to Jesus being our King, as in Jesus is the one, for us, who makes the rules. Like he's the one who we look to for where are we supposed to be going with our lives? He's King for every Christian. Now let's take that king thing. Let's take the king thing. You know, back in olden times, you've got to cast your mind back like thousands of years, kings, and maybe this still happens in some places, but kings were often known as the father of their people. Ancient kings were often called fathers of the nation. Now, in this way, Jesus can also be known as a father because he is our King. Now, let me put those 2 together in a picture I rather like of Jesus washing his disciples' feet. Jesus can be called and fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah as the everlasting Father because he cares and because he's King, because he is the caring King. And what does Jesus do? As our King, how does he rule? Well, you could say he's the pro King, because I've got a couple of words that start with pro. So he's the pro King. He's the one who provides for us and protects us, as a good father would. He provides and protects. But no one could have really foreseen how this baby who was to be born was going to provide and protect for people like us today. It's just really hard for anyone to see how this was all going to pan out. That one day the King Jesus, Father of his people, would die for his people, to provide for them and to protect them. As Jesus suffered on the cross, I can say for me, as Jesus was suffering and dying on that cross, he was paying for all the wrong things I'd done. He was providing for me. He was protecting me forever. Now it's the same for anyone who's turned their life over to Jesus and said, you're the king. I follow you now. This would be true for you, that Jesus has provided a rescue for you. He's protecting you always from the punishment that our sins deserve. He's providing a way out of all of this. I mean, there's loads of great stuff about life, but there's also the stuff that eventually overwhelms us, the suffering, the sin, the death. Jesus is willing, has been willing to provide and protect any of us forever and bring us into glorious, remember, life with him as children of God. Now, what is absolutely amazing about Isaiah, okay, it's a long book in the Bible. It's one of the big ones, easier to find. One of the most amazing things about Isaiah is you go from Isaiah 9 to Isaiah 53, and you actually see that God has inspired Isaiah to not only say the baby's coming, but also saying the baby's going to grow up and going to be dying. Isaiah 53, let's just look at just verse 5. Bear in mind, this is written 700 years before that first Easter. These words, I mean, it sure sounds like the cross of Christ to me. So Isaiah 53, verse 5, but he was pierced for our transgressions, this suffering servant who's to come, that God is sending. He was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace, Prince of Peace, the punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. And for some people, that will sound like blah, blah, blah. And for those, when God opens your eyes to it, you're like, wow, that is the cross of Jesus. This baby is going to do that. And on that cross, and in so many other ways, King Jesus is our everlasting Father. He's the one striving to protect his people and to provide for his people under his kingly rule. And he's doing it today. King Jesus is providing for and is protecting his people today. In Hebrews 7, it says it like this about Jesus. He is able to save completely those who come to God through him. It's verse 25, yeah. He is able to save completely those who come to God through him because he always lives to intercede for them. By intercede, it's like he's praying for them, he's helping them. Let me draw your attention to two words there. Completely and always. This is how King Jesus is with his people. Completely and always. Their protector, their provider for his people. He is. He's the caring king we need today and tomorrow and into all the tomorrows, into forever. It is extraordinary. And so he can be described as not just Father, but everlasting. From that Hebrews 7 passage, he always lives to intercede. He's the everlasting Father. Fatherly in only the best ways, forever. This is the Christmas child. Joy to the world. The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Jesus is King. Now let's retrace our steps just quickly. Consider the promised child. As we think about Christmas, consider the child born in Bethlehem. He is, well, he's, as I can see on some of these sheets, he is the wonderful counselor. When Jesus walked the earth, the wisdom of God walked the earth. God with us. Secondly, Jesus is the mighty God. God with us, God the Son, mighty to save. And finally, Jesus is the everlasting Father for his people. For his people, he is and always will be the provider, the protector. I do like this image, the caring king that we need. We actually need a caring king. Just read the news. Think about the future. We need this caring king, the Lord Jesus Christ. So we are going to celebrate and sing about this now as we finish.